Good evening, everyone. Maneco 64 here, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So it's Sunday, November 8th, 2020. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me well. I'm doing well. Thank you, Quit Addiction. Hi, Pablo Pina. Hi, Music Lover. Damian Wright, Andy Hughes, Mike GB, Jim Diggs. West Coast, hi West Coast. No, Billy's having a nap already. He's been quite anxious and nervous the last few days because of all the fireworks that have been let off 5th of November. And they continue to let fireworks. He gets quite distressed from fireworks. Decent audio. Okay, good. I'm gonna do something here and make it probably better. Okay. Foggy in Rio. Okay. Here it's been foggy in the mornings a little bit. We've had a bit of mist in the mornings here in London. Quit Addiction. Do you think there will be a reset at Christmas? As I've said many times, a reset is just like a correction. And I think it could accelerate towards the end of the year. And I think a reset would be done through prices of commodities in general. I think gold and silver are leading the way, of course, but I would also expect all the other commodities to follow. And that would be a reflection of the loss of purchasing powers of all fiat currencies. Manoj Pun from Maryland, hi. Black Silver Staff. No, hi No, nice to see you. Gillian B from Perthshire in Scotland, hi Gillian. Billy Bullion is here, that's right. Timothy Zero. Luca Puzzoli, hi Luca. Sandra Leet from San Francisco. Hot weather in New York. Yeah, it's pretty mild here in the UK, even though we haven't really been going out that much. My daughter's been taking Billy out every day, of course. Yeah, maybe I'll start taking him out as well. Daniel Sass, elections did a turnaround. Do you think Biden will lock the US down in February? Well, one thing I think is happening is, especially the mainstream media, all the newspapers, the networks in the US, even here in the UK, everyone's saying Biden is the next president. But I think it's far from over. And they're setting up a scenario where there's going to be a lot of disappointment, I think, and we could see chaos, social chaos. We could see violence because I think Trump is going to contest this election. So I think it's far from over. And that's why the title of my video is, why gold will make your life. You don't need, a central bank when you've got gold, i.e. be your own central bank. Yes, the politics is a lot of theater, I think, in my opinion. In the end of the day, it's not going to matter too much financially who wins. They're going to have slightly different policies. But one thing that's for certain, the US dollar or the Federal Reserve note, the British pound, the euro, the Japanese yen, the Aussie dollar, all fiat currencies are going to keep losing purchasing power versus real things, versus gold and silver. Yeah, Chris R., I agree with you. Disappointment equals more violence. And I've seen the pictures and some videos, people celebrating in the big urban areas in the States with champagne, very happy. And I think they're going to be disappointed because there's going to be a big dispute. And I think the Electoral College only elects the candidate on December 14th. So there's still over a month to go until I saw Jim Rickards. He tweeted that because someone said oh, Joe Biden is the new president. What do you think is going to happen? And he replied, well, the election isn't over yet because the Electoral College, they have 2 dates that are important, the 8th of December and the 14th, where they elect the actual candidates. So a lot of things could happen from now till then. And I heard that in California, they're still allowing mail-in ballots to come in until November 21st. So there you go. Yeah, Mr. Guppy, I do agree with you. The stock market is very elevated. I've talked about that long-term S&P chart. It looks like we're forming a massive, like top. If anything, we're more near a top. It could hyperinflate more, like you said, during a hyperinflation. Some stocks do very well, not all of them, not financial stocks, I would say, or insurance companies or things like that. So we got quite a few people here already, 246. So let's see here, 1 second. So yeah, the title today is Gold Takes the Central Bank Out of Your Life. It's basically like saying become your own central banker. And I'm going to reference a Pocketbook of Gold by Jim Sinclair, because a lot of people attribute the term be your own central banker to Greg Mannarino. And I've got nothing against him, but I think Jim Sinclair and Peter Carlin, who co-wrote the book with him, they were ahead of the curve. This was written in 2009, published in 2010. So this is what Jim Sinclair says, and I'm going to read through it, if you don't mind. It says, gold allows you to be your own central bank. Although a central bank is supposed to maintain the value and purchasing power of a currency, it has both the ability and the tendency to depreciate the wealth of citizens through excess money printing. So it's even worse today than in 2009 and 10. Interestingly, while they issue paper money, they also maintain gold as a currency reserve. That alone should tell you something. Central banks do not depend entirely on their own paper currency to maintain wealth. They use gold. Why? One reason is because gold offsets currency risk. Through the retention of gold, an individual mimics the function of a central bank and therefore negates the detrimental effects of a central bank running its monetary printing press. So that's really clear there. I think it's getting worse now as well. And I'm going to come to another quote from this book in a minute. It is why they own it. And they don't want you to. You see, they don't want you to own real gold. The World Gold Council has been advertising a lot about gold, but they push a lot of people to go into ETFs, and I think that's a big mistake. The controller of a nation's money supply can dictate the distribution of wealth and power within that nation. As the banker Mayer Rothschild once said, give me control of a nation's money supply and I care not who makes its laws. Gold mitigates the power surrendered by holding a fiat currency. Gold is power. So, and this is what he says as well here. Gold is a hedge against the self-serving nature of governments. Again, ponder the power equation. Gold ownership passes the central bank function directly to yourself. So basically, you don't have to trust the central bank because you've got gold or you got silver. I think silver is another way to protect yourself. And some would say cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin or other currencies. And I'm not going to argue with them. I personally think they're too volatile for me, but there's a limited amount of it, right? In the spirit of self-reliance, it is better to be your own central bank instead of delegating the responsibility to a third party like the Federal Reserve or Bank of England. So yeah, why do we have to delegate our sovereignty to these people? So that's why you should just really be watching what's going on politically and just having some popcorn and enjoying the drama and the entertainment. It shouldn't really impact on you, I would say. Gold takes the Federal Reserve out of your life. So that's what he said. I put central bank because I didn't want to put the exact same thing. Or at the very least, marginalizes it. Since the central bank is the primary controller of a currency's value and therefore your wealth, this is no bad thing. So there you go. You don't have to be a gold bug or anything like that to understand that you need some gold to protect your savings and your wealth. So Mr. Guppy is here. Each year, corporations raise their prices by 10%, and there is no inflation. Look at iPhone prices. Yeah, well, inflation is the increase in the money supply and credit by central banks. A lot of the time, a lot of people say, oh, inflation is when greedy corporations raise prices. But I can tell you, if they raise prices too much, they'd have competition. And yeah, competition is the best thing, really. But it's really the central bank and the government that create the inflation that sometimes results in some prices going up, some prices react later than others. So there you go. Yeah, just keep stacking. Yeah, no. I think the other word for stacking is just saving money, right? Saving real money. That's what you do when you stack gold and silver. You can't really stack fiat currency. Well, you could at home, but it's a losing proposition in terms of purchasing power. But it's funny because a lot of people, they feel more comfortable in having the national or fiat currency. They think gold and silver are too risky, but that's because they haven't done their homework. Oh, thank you, Luca. Do you think gold could pull back in the short term, maybe 1750, 1780, Lucid Chronicles? Actually, I think we've had the pullback in gold already. So no, I think we've already had the pullback. I think the low was 1848, and that's it. And we're going to go back up now. Even though, of course, anything is possible, but I think the probability of that is very small. Lord Henry, thank you for your super chat. Pablo Pina asks, do you think the central banks can curb inflation by buying back treasury bonds? They're not, central banks are not buying back. Central banks are buying treasury bonds. They're monetizing it. The only way, I think what you mean by buying back is retiring the debt. The only entity that can retire treasury debt is the treasury. The only way they can do that is to have surpluses. Do you see the US Treasury or UK Treasury or any treasury in Europe having a surplus these days? No, that's the only way they can retire the debt. All the central banks do is buy indirectly the new debt that is issued. And why do they do that? Because if they didn't do QE and buy government debt, interest rates would be at double digits. Everything would have collapsed already. So they are monetizing debt. There's no two ways about it. Yes, they don't do it directly in the issuance or primary market. They do it in the secondary market. How that works is the primary dealers, the big international banks, they will buy issues of treasury bonds for themselves and for clients, and then an hour later, the central bank will come out and start buying those in the secondary market. So the primary dealers know that they're going to get a cut of, they're going to have that bought by the Fed. And in the process, they make a profit, which is quite outrageous. That's how the bankers get even richer from this process. And you can bet they're probably buying gold and other hard assets with their profits. So we've got 359 people viewing. That's good. Daniel says the media is not covering the fourth industrial revolution happening right now. I agree. They're trying hard. The globalists through the World Economic Forum is like the guiding. They have the strategy, and they're trying it hard. I've been talking about this. I've been trying to warn people about it. I wrote something in my blog, maneco64.net, in June, and I've been making videos about it as well. But you do hear more and more people. I think talk radio here in the UK, which is quite mainstream, they interviewed the PR guy from the World Economic Forum, an English guy in Geneva, and he said, "Oh, this is all hyperbole. Is not real, and we're not trying to conquer the world. We just have our ideas. It's a think tank." But I'm not too sure about that. Mr. Guppy says, I kept believing they could save the system and fix it. I started buying metals in 2014. Well, the thing is that the only way to save the system is to have corrections occur, big bankruptcies, sharp recessions, but that's not popular for the politicians, for the voters, and it's not profitable for the bankers. So they've kept pumping the money. They've kept bailing out people. They've kept giving them free money at 0%, and but it's going to come to an end. Things like that are not sustainable. And with that, I'm going to go to chapter 1 of the Pocketbook of Gold, and the first chapter 1, Why Own Gold? So the first quote he has. They have a quote here before the chapter starts from Ludwig von Mises, and this is what von Mises said, and this is what I'm talking about right now. The fact that they can't stop doing this. It says there is no means of avoiding a final collapse of a boom brought about by credit expansion. So we've had massive credit expansion, I would say, since the collapse of the dot-com bubble. They've kept reinflating it. The bubbles are getting bigger and bigger. The amount of bailouts or injection of QE has been getting bigger and bigger, right? And he says the alternative is only whether the crisis should come sooner as a result of a voluntary abandonment of further credit expansion. Do we see abandonment of credit expansion? No. Or later as a final and total catastrophe of the currency system involved. So there you go. That's where I think we're going. The catastrophe of the currency system, and that will not just be the dollar. Will not just be the dollar, U.S. dollar, but all other fiat currencies. Jacko 717, thank you for the super chat. 5,000 to invest, gold or silver. I would put a third in gold. No, sorry, a third in silver and 2/3 in gold, because I think silver is going to outperform going forward. So if you buy half and half in terms of fiat, when silver starts going up, you're going to have more. I think a third silver, 2/3 gold is a good way to do it. Yeah. I hope that helps. So yeah, I thought that's a great quote from von Mises. And the other thing that I've kind of known because some people say, "Oh, how can you guess?" Well, I think if one learns history and looks at history and studies history, like I've done quite a bit, there's a book called "Fiat Money, Inflation in France" about the crisis they had during and just after the French Revolution in 1790 to 1796. They went on an experiment of issuing money, paper money, and even then it was backed by church land, right? Because they confiscated all the church and the property of the church in the revolution. But that didn't even work. And they had the same problems we're having now. The economy would pick up quite well once you issue the paper money. And then after a few months, it would slow down. And then they'd have to come back and issue even more to keep it going. And after a few times and a few years of that, finally, the system just imploded. So the more they issue as well, the more debt there is, the slower the economy is going to be. And why is that? Well, because the economy is going to have to carry more debt. It's going to be less productive. Can you imagine if you had a lot of debt and you're working and you kept indebting yourself? You'd have to keep working, and you wouldn't you couldn't save as much and maybe invest in yourself or your family and be more productive. And that's what happens. And once you go down that path of inflating, trying to stop a crisis, you can't stop. And eventually, the final crisis is a currency crisis. And that's why I think you need to have stack as much gold and silver as possible, be out of debt as well as much as possible. If you want to trade the markets, go ahead, but do it with the amount of capital that you think you'll be okay losing. What I'm trying to say here is, like in Venezuela a few years ago, you bought gold at 8,000 bolivars. It went up to 12,000. And then it came back to 8. And you said, oh, I'm going to sell it here because we've made a top. And now we've come back to 8,000. And then you sold, and a year or two later, it was hundreds of millions. And I think I'm not saying we're going to hundreds of millions of dollars per ounce of gold, but I think gold and silver are going to go a lot higher, only because all our currencies are going to go a lot lower, because the central banks and the governments are going to keep inflating. And that's why I have a problem when people talk about the fact that we have the deflation. Yeah, we have a kind of a depressionary economy in that we're locked down and businesses are not as robust, growth is not as robust, but that's only because we've got too much debt or inflation. Don't forget, the debt in the fiat currency system is the money. Jeff McCarthy, it took Rome a few hundred years to completely collapse. That's true, but Rome didn't have OTC derivatives. They didn't have, the amount of credit that they can issue out of thin air. It was much more limited. Rome didn't fool the public as much as the public has been fooled right now. I think the only way they could inflate was through the coinage, and that took a while, a few hundred years to clip. The silver coin there took a few hundred years to become basically copper. John Colorado asks, spot prices set by COMEX. If silver starts selling 5, 10, 20 over spot due to supply and demand, then could we see SLV start to reverse? What is PSLV? I'm not sure what PSLV is. I know SLV is an ETF, but COMEX is part of the price mechanism. I think the LBMA as well sets the price of spot silver. Spot just means next day payment, and in physical. I'm not sure what you mean by PSLV. Of course, SLV is just an ETF. It could diverge greatly from the spot price. Physically backed. I'm not sure. Well, 99% physically backed. I just think, yeah, the COMEX price eventually, like Jim Sinclair and Bill Holter have been saying, it will be basically, it will be not a reflection of the real price. And I think you will see that in the price of real physical silver. I don't really deal too much with ETF, and I don't really want to know much about ETFs, to be honest. So right now, you know, if you need to buy an ounce of silver, it's probably much more than $30 now in the US. In the UK, it's like, even though the price, the spot price that we see on the screen is about 19 pounds, you're going to be paying almost 30 pounds with the premium, and sometimes even without the VAT. No says PSLV is Sprott physical stockpile. Yeah, I'm not. I tend to trust the Sprott organization, so but I don't follow the Sprott silver ETF. Bible studies. Sell silver at 100 to pay off home. Well, if you can, if you've got a mortgage, why not? You know, do you have to sell all of it? Maybe, but yeah, it's always good to pay off debt. Yeah, Paul says silver should be at least $50. Well, I think it should be even higher, really, to be honest. But eventually, I think it will go through $50. Once it goes through $50, it's going to be a crazy, I think, you know, because they've kept it suppressed for so long that I think it's going to be like really epic. Can't tell you what price. Have some ideas. I've made videos about how we could go to 400 if we replicate the bull market of the 70s. So there you go. And there are some other analysts who have the same price target. John Colorado, my point is PSLV diverging from SLV would indicate street price diverging from spot price. Yeah, that's right. I mean, one way to see how it's diverging as well is to see the premium for coins. I guess that's what you're trying to say. Manoj Pun, thank you for the super chat. Would you say precious metals are insurance rather than investment? Yeah, that's a good question because, you know, I have a promo code with Gold Investments. They're a bullion dealer. They don't invest in gold. They just deal in, they're like a coin bar dealer. But in a sound money monetary system where gold and silver are money, gold and silver are savings, right? But in the crazy fiat currency system that we're under now, that's gotten so out of whack, it's so unanchored from reality. The fact that gold and silver do give you a good return and have been giving a good return for the last 20 years does make it act like an investment. But it is also insurance. And why is it insurance? Well, because it protects you against counterparty risk. It's an insurance that pays off automatically. You don't have to go to an insurance company. And how does it pay off? Well, if there's a currency crisis or any other kind of crisis, gold and silver are accepted everywhere around the world. So yeah, it's all of it really. But ultimately, they're sound money, I would say. Aesop's hair. When do you think interest rates could start rising? Yeah, I mean, they should be a lot higher interest rates. The thing is, the central banks, they're basically telling investors and speculators, don't worry, we're going to keep rates as low as possible. We're not going to let interest rates go up too far, but they might be able to keep interest rates low for the government bonds, but corporate bonds could be a different story, even though they could come out as well and start buying more and more of those. I saw that Australia, their Reserve Bank, they're targeting now interest rates at the 3-year government bond level. So yeah, they're trying to do that. But the flip side of that, yeah, people are going to say, "Wow, bonds are really safe because the central bank is going to make sure the rates don't go higher because they're going to keep printing money to keep buying those bonds to keep the rates low." But the flip side is that the currency will become worth less and less, and so you could be owning bonds that you bought at 100, and then they're at 120 in 5 years' time, but $120 will be worth like $60 in purchasing power. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But and you could also have, if the general investment public decides to get rid of their bonds, it's going to be hard for the central banks to stop that right now. Yeah, so rates could stay low for a while more. Yeah, Andy Hughes says UK has furlough extension until March. Yeah, they're just going to keep. It was supposed to be end of October. Now it's March. That's much. That's more debt, more inflation, and by inflation I mean more issuance of debt and currency. That's going to be more people spending money without producing. So there you go. That's not going to help prices stay. How can I say level? Arthur Quinn, Massachusetts. Hi, Arthur. Nice to see you here. Jeff McCarthy, if we could get rid of the dollar, we would be free. I don't think it's the dollar. It's more the Federal Reserve and the legal tender laws, because the dollar really technically is a piece of silver. Really, it's a it's a weight of silver, the dollar, and it derives from the thaler, or the old European coin. I think this is a this is a there we go. The Maria Teresa Thaler. There you go. That's a dollar there. So I think it's more getting rid of fiat currency and the legal tender laws and the Federal Reserve. The dollar itself is a good thing. Alfredo Costa from Lisbon. Hi, Alfredo. World Mayhem Organization. I'm about to bail out to Portugal from Spain. I mean, everywhere right now, there is no really bailout, I would say. I thought Greece was quite quite liberal, but I saw that they've locked down again. So I think the best place right now is to stay at home, because you know home best, right? I think it's unless you're a billionaire and you can move around in your private jet. Whole Bitcoin at Thaler is a good crypto. Never heard of the Thaler crypto. DMC says the next financial system will likely be worse for humanity than the current one. Could be, but you know, all we need to do is follow the same rules that we're following now. If you want to be outside the system, very simple: gold and silver, or like a lot of people here are talking about cryptos as well. If you're more into cryptos, I have some cryptos, but I prefer precious metals. I prefer the track record. But if anything, I have been earning some crypto because I've been publishing all my videos on Steemit, on DTube, on BitChute, where else? On Hive. So I have earned cryptocurrency over the years. And yes, it served the purpose. But to speculate, that's different. Jack B, do you know Simon Dixon? Well, I know of Simon Dixon because I invested in one of his funds about 4 years ago, Bitcoin Capital 3, Bitcoin Capital 3 fund. So yeah, I put a little bit of money in that fund. It's a private fund, so you can't really sell it. But I've gotten quite a bit of money back from it, more than I put in, and I still have it. I think they've got a big investment in Kraken. So I think that's most of the holdings now in Bitcoin Capital 3. We got some return a month or so ago from Bitso. They sold out. In the beginning, they used to pay dividends in Bitcoin because they were mining, but they haven't mined for a few years now. So yeah, I know of Simon Dixon because I've got some money in one of his funds. Mr. Guppy, I'm trying to figure out the best way to buy copper. When I figure it out, I'll let the channel know. Here in the UK, if you go to Sharps Pixley, they do sell copper bars. I've got one here. I bought this, I don't remember when. This is a kilo of copper. There you go. It's a kilo bar. Sharps Pixley. There you go. John Colorado, yeah, it's very bulky. Like you said, it's not worthless. It's just, it's what some people say about silver. They'd rather have gold. If you have $100 million, you'd rather buy, gold. You buy a bit of silver, but you don't put all the 100 million in silver because it's too bulky. Graham Hobbs says Madagascar is the place to be. They ask you to take your mask off at customs. Gaza thinks the gold-silver ratio is going to go to 1-to-1. It's possible. I tend to say I think in 2011 it went down to the low 30s, the gold-silver ratio. I think we're going to go below that this time. I think we could be around 10 or 15. I'm not sure if it'll go 1-to-1. It wouldn't really. I wouldn't be unhappy about that, though. Yeah, I think when the UK had a gold standard and had silver coinage up until 1914, the ratio was just above 14-to-1 during the 19th century and early 20th century. Does Billy still buy gold at 1-to-30 ratio? Dilwyn Roberts, I guess you are all dreaming. In civil wars, precious metals are worthless. I actually don't agree with you, Roberts, Dilwyn. Um, Basically, in times of war, that's when you need gold and silver, because paper could become worthless depending on, the government could fall. Gold and silver will do well. John Meyer, thank you for your super chat. Updates on COMEX and the LBMA dealings by any chance? Will manipulation ever stop? One thing I read, I think it was King World News. Someone was talking about the bullion banks have huge, like almost $40 billion in short positions in gold, so they might have to cover. I think they're going to have a tough time. They could, they could run for the hills. The manipulation, the thing about the bullion banks is that there will be a time when they will go long as well. They're not going to be short all the time. So that's what I would say to you. Patrick Peterson, if dollar collapses, what happens to gold? If dollar collapse, what happens to dollar? What happens to gold mining stocks? Well, they'll be worth a lot in the new currency, because if the dollar collapses, they'll have to bring something new. Yeah, they will do well, because the dollar collapse means gold going up, because the dollar can only collapse really against gold. And why is that? Well, because it's the reserve currency. It won't collapse versus the euro or the yen or the pound, because those countries, those central banks, if their currencies start going up too much, they're going to print as well. So the only thing that really the dollar can collapse against are real things, and especially gold. Gold jewelry. Black Silver asks, what do you think about stacking gold jewelry? Well, if you do have gold jewelry, yeah, hold on to it. I think Indians, the Asians, they buy a lot of their gold as jewelry, and they usually buy 22 karat gold. And there are specialist jewelers here in London or in the UK, Asian and they charge a very small premium even for the jewelry. So yeah, it depends where you get the jewelry. But I wouldn't recommend you going to a normal jeweler and buying gold by buying a necklace or a gold chain. I think it's makes more sense to buy the bullion. World Mayhem Organization, after the reset, the price of labor will be set at a point of a gun. Having grown up in Brazil and gone through like a currency collapse in the late 80s in Brazil, I can say there is disruption, but if Brazil can come out of an old currency and reset into a new currency, yes, there's a lot of troubles there, but it's not the end of the world. I think people need to, I think there's more danger of what's happening politically and socially now in the US than what could happen economically. So I wouldn't really be too doomsday scenario like. Yeah, I think sometimes we get too much in. I think things are not that bad. Well, not that bad in that it will be bad, and it's already bad. But it's not going to be the end of the world. And I think there's nothing wrong with our economies, with the infrastructure in general, and people. There's something wrong with the monetary system, and hopefully, that will be fixed. Um, don't know how, but they'll need to fix it properly. We really need to go back to a sound money system, and that's why I keep doing these videos. I don't have any huge hopes about it, but we can be, as I've said in the title of my video, be our own central banks, right? So that's the only thing we can do. That's right, John Mayer is saying, if you're going to have a new system that people have confidence in, I think it has to be with a physical asset like gold or silver. Yes, cryptocurrencies have done well, but do you think the general public, if we have a monetary collapse and then we get people saying, oh, we're going to back our currency with Bitcoin or Ethereum, 99% or 99% of people 40 years or older would say, what the hell are you talking about? But if you said, oh, we're going to back the currency with gold, I think it would be more successful. I could be wrong, but I wouldn't buy into the central banks and the governments coming out and saying, oh, the currency system's collapsed. We're going to bring you a new system, and it's going to be digital currencies. And people are going to say, well, what's behind these digital currencies? And they're going to say, oh, nothing. So, yeah, I agree with John there, John Mayer. World Mayhem Organization, if Trump quits, so does your future. I don't think, presidents come and go, and it doesn't really matter who's president or who's a prime minister here in the UK or who's king or queen. I think we need to be less uh, reliant on politicians, not let them really affect our lives. Yes, they do affect our lives, their policies, but we have to try to be outside that system as much as possible and don't buy into their schemes. Patrick Peterson, I mean, why would you need to be on a citizen's salary if you have your own business or your own job? I know it's hard these days to keep your own business, but yeah, maybe there are people who are going to accept being a child, really, because a child, you give them pocket money, right? Because they can't go to work, they're still at school. But I'm not looking to be dependent on the globalists and get their salary. That's right, Luca Puzzoli. Politics is just to keep us divided and also to pretend we're in charge, right? Every 2 or 4 years, we have a selection, I would say. Mr. Guppy, aren't you worried people know who you are and eventually come to your house and rob you? Well, they could go to anyone's house and rob them. And I don't think people know where I live. So there you go. You can't live like that. Of course, someone could rob me, someone who doesn't know me. So yeah. Joker Alpha, so I'm not worried. Joker Alpha, thank you for the super chat. Print money, cheers. Would going into debt to get gold be a good idea? I always tell people no, really. No, I don't think it is a good idea. because the whole point of having gold is getting outside the system. Gold is saving, so it doesn't make sense to borrow money to save. That's the way I think of it. What does PMs mean? Precious metals. I don't think I'm as popular as some people on YouTube, that people see me on the streets and say, "Oh, hi, Maneco 64." I've never had someone say that. John Colorado, yeah, I do think all fiat is trash. I do think, though, the yuan, yeah, I would say China is in a better financial situation than the U.S. in terms of the, how much they're a credit. China is a creditor nation, but they still hold a lot of dollars, so that's not a good thing either. But I would say the yuan is not a substitute, is not a hedge versus the dollar going down. I would say gold and silver. Yes, the yuan has gone up in the last few months. The dollar's dropped from like 720 to we're now around 660. So yeah, but yeah, I don't think I'd want to own yuan. You might want to do it through owning Chinese companies, though. DMC, how are cryptocurrencies considered a store of value if they cannot be redeemed? Well, the argument is that the supply of Bitcoin is limited and that it takes, computing power, electricity to mine a Bitcoin. I agree with you. I like being able to hold something like a silver coin. Have you noticed, like a lot of the publications, you see thumbnails on YouTube videos about Bitcoin, they usually put a gold coin with a B on it, but I've never seen a Bitcoin coin, really. Maidan Shi, if there's an EMP and the internet and power goes down, your cryptos will be difficult to access. That's right. It's the Carrington event. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Carrington event. I think it was in the 1850s. There's like an electric magnetic burst of energy from the sun, and it burned, I think, a lot of the telegraph cables. If we had a Carrington event today, that would be very serious. Yeah, it would be a serious thing. Adam G, do you think crypto will be made illegal? Yeah, I've heard people ask this question to like people who are a lot more knowledgeable about cryptos than me, and they say, well, you'd have to ban computer programming. So I think it's going to be difficult. They could ban people from exchanging crypto to their digital currencies or fiat, whatever, but you can't actually ban people from creating cryptos and sending it to other people. So it's very hard. It's impossible, I think. Black Silver Staff, are you going to take the vaccine? Which vaccine is that, Black Silver Staff? Is it the flu vaccine or the COVID vaccine? I usually don't take vaccines, no, so I probably wouldn't. No, I would definitely not take a vaccine. I think I'm perfectly healthy. No, yeah, Black Silver, I wouldn't take any vaccine, no. I think I took the last time I took a vaccine was in 1987. My dad and I and some friends, we went on a trip up the Amazon on a boat. from Rio, and you had to have vaccine to go into the Amazon. I think it was the malaria vaccine. That was the last time I had a vaccine. What gold stocks should you buy? I would check out the GDX, what they hold in the GDX index or ETF or GDXJ. Check out Sprott Asset Management. Check out the Sprott Precious Metals Funds and see what stocks they own, and then select a few of them. Jeff McCarthy, maybe metal holders will be the new elite class. John Colorado, I would take a COVID vaccine microchip for 1 ounce silver eagle. You're cheap, John Colorado. You're a cheap guy. Have I got any diamonds? No, but my wife has, not me. Adam G says Chinese have banned ICOs. I haven't been following that space that much. Damien Wright, what's Prince Charles' deal? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, I saw that he's backing this Great Reset. That's all I know. And he's got a lot of land and farms though, so it's all right for him. Well, I would take the COVID vaccine more for a million of 1 ounce silver coins, maybe, or not even. I don't think I want to take this COVID vaccine. That's right, DMC. There's no, yeah. I wouldn't want to sell my soul to Bill Gates. Jeff McCarthy, how do your wives, I only got one wife, feel about matters? I guess you're asking everyone here. Patrick Peterson, do you think we're going to go cashless in Europe in January? I don't think we're going to be doing it here in the UK. I don't think the Swiss are going to go cashless anytime soon. I've lived in Switzerland, and I go there regularly, and the Swiss use a lot of cash, maybe in other countries in Europe. No, I'm not near Peterborough, Yabba Dabba Doo. I'm more, I'm in the London area. I've been up towards Peterborough, Grantham, Lincolnshire. Liquidity crisis earlier in the year. Yeah, hi, Happy Cakes. Liquidity crisis really is when prices of bonds and all financial assets get really wacky, very volatile. And especially it starts in the treasury market. We saw the treasury prices go up and down like a yo-yo. So it means that dealers, because the dealers, primary dealers, are the one who always are making a market, a bid and offer for securities. And when there's a liquidity crisis, what happens is that people lose confidence in the banks, in the dealers. So let's say you call your bank or your broker and say, I want to sell those bonds I have, the IBM 2030 10-year bonds. And they'll say, oh, let me get the dealer. And then they call the dealer and they say, oh, it's 98 bid at 105, which is a huge bid and offer spread. It should be like 100.1 to 100.2. So that's what happens. dealers don't want to deal anymore. Banks don't want to deal because there's no trust anywhere. And if you do deal, you're going to lose a lot of your money. So there's the liquidity just dries up. And sometimes, let's say you call your broker or your private bank, if you are lucky enough to, or have a lot of money to have a private banker, and they call the dealer or the broker and they don't pick up. That's what happens in a liquidity crisis. There's no market. And that's why the central banks had to come in and start saying, we're going to be here for you. We're going to pump the system. We're going to buy these bonds, corporate bonds, anything you need. And then, confidence gets back into the system. That's what they had to do. But the flip side is that they had to create trillions of dollars to get the liquidity back in flowing. And next time it happens, it could be like twice as much as in March, because it gets worse and worse as the system gets more and more unstable, more leveraged. Happy Cakes, thank you for your super chat. Gaza, I'm 58 and I have 650 ounces of silver. Will receive me through retirement. Do you mean will it see me through retirement? I don't know. I mean, when are you going to retire? Are you going to retire at 65, or are you going to retire today? I think 650 ounces. Yeah, I mean, some people think, that you could live. I think people say that you could live quite well with a silver dime or a silver quarter back in the 50s. So 650 ounces right now, that's what, about $15,000. I mean, if silver does what we think it will do, yeah, it should be okay. But yeah, and again, I don't really know your style, your living, how you live, but it should certainly help you. Yeah, and I don't know where you live. There are some places that are more expensive than others. I think I'll keep going on. I'll keep going today a bit more than an hour, if that's okay with you guys. You're welcome, Black Silver. Thank you. I meant thank you, Black Silver. Who's your favorite politician? Well, if I had to choose, because I don't like politicians at all, I'm atheist, political atheist, but Ron Paul would be the one. And why? Well, because he got elected by telling his constituents that he was going to try to do as little as possible for them, and they like that. And that's what I like. That's how I'd like politicians to be: do as little as possible for me. And why do I say that? Well, because when they try to do too much, that means they're going to have to tax you, because they're actually not doing something for you. They're doing something for the people who vote for them. Attempted assassination on BOZ. Who's Boz, DMC? I don't know who that is. Favorite politician ever? Like I said, no, I don't have a favorite politician ever. Maybe a few years ago I did, but I don't think they're very important. They're just pawns, I think. No, I'm not familiar with David Hunter. Barter network taking off. Yeah, barter is good. Politicians and governments hate barter because they can't tax you through barter. Well, apart from Ron Paul, let me think. Uh, I can't think of one really. Uh, Martin Van Buren. There you go. No, not even Winston Churchill. I think, yeah, I rate my family, my father, my grandparents, a lot more than politicians. I think they're much more important for me. That's how I look at it. JFK, I don't know. I mean, there's it's not rumors, but it's almost like fact that his dad helped him win as well. They stuffed ballots in Chicago as well. So there you go. Hi, Upper Darby. Lucas Razor talking about Nigel Farage and gold. Yeah, he's come out now. He's trying to, well, that's Nigel Farage. It's a shame he didn't do that, 4 or 5 years ago, because he knew about gold. I think he's been interviewed on King World News, and he's always been a little bit. Oh, I'm going to wait for it. I don't think it's time yet. But do I think it's late? The fact that he's coming out now? No, I don't think it's late to get into gold. And, because I've always said that the system is on its last legs, the fiat currency system. No, I don't think he's selling gold. I mean, nah. I think he's just trying to find a new business avenue. I know someone that I work with someone that worked with was one of Nigel Farage's clients. Nigel Farage was a broker in the London Metals Exchange, so that's just base metals. That the LME is not precious metals. I think they have a precious metals contract now, but when he worked there, it was just the industrial metals. He was a broker in the LME, and brokers in the LME usually did really well because it was a very illiquid market. So you had huge bid and offer spreads. So he knows about the base metals, but precious metals, I'm not too sure. Native American, my prediction for next week, we had a really good close this past week, and usually you would say, "Oh yeah, I think it's going to continue." But I remember a few weeks ago that happened and it didn't. But I agree with you. Not sure we'll go to 2000, but I think the move the last couple of, well, especially Thursday, was very encouraging in gold and silver, and also the miners. Spencer Yard, yeah, Warren Buffett's dad was a gold bug politician, Howard Buffett. Yeah, I've read his article. Oh, the other guy that I would say, is it John McFadden? Uh, yeah, he was very anti-Fed. Also, Charles Lindbergh Sr. So yeah, there are some politicians that I respect, like is it is it Louis McFadden, Louis McFadden, and uh, Charles Lindbergh Sr. They fought the creation of the Federal Reserve really hard. Those two guys. Stink bug metals. I think not only the large European banks, but most banks around the world are in big trouble. And they have been since September last year, the repo crisis. Black silver stuff. How much is good amount of gold and silver per month? It depends. How much do you want to save? That's how you should look at precious metals. Billy's sleeping. Yeah, he's sleeping a lot these days. Yeah, he's getting old. He's like 12 and a half. All right, I'll take a few more questions, and then we've done an hour and 10 minutes today. So I'll take a couple more questions. Winston Churchill saved Britain and by extension the world. Okay. Do you think we can see a 10,000 gold price in this decade? Yes, I do. Best politician, Julius Caesar. Joker Alpha, I always thought that lending increases the value of the economy. Well, if it's lending that's based on, projects that succeed, yeah, it's a good thing. But if it's lending like we have today, for consumption and government waste, then it's not a good thing. Who has been the worst Fed boss? Yeah, Bernanke or Bill Martin wasn't very good, I don't think, during the 70s. So there you go. And I think Greenspan, he set a really bad example by bailing out the stock market and everything else. So I would say Alan Greenspan, he wasn't a good example. So, all right, everyone. I'm calling it a night now, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you later.